We're on Nun Beis Amid Beis. By the two dots, about 20 lines down. Admatai, so the Mishnah was talking about where you have a coin that was degraded or deteriorated. It said in the Mishnah, Admasai mutar lahachzer, until how long can the person, the seller who received a coin that was had a no on it that was less than the value at which it's allowed to be, at which you're allowed to use it, until when can he go back to the person who gave it to him, to the purchaser, and say this is no good? So the Mishnah said, we're on Nun Beis Amid Beis, about a third of the way down. So we say in the city, until the amount of time that it takes him to go over to a money changer to check the coin. The kfarim, but in the villages, in the rural areas, at Arve Shabbos, until Erev Shabbos, like we said, the Gemara is going to explain, because that's when he goes to spend the money. He goes to the marketplace and spends it, and then chances are the other storekeeper will be a little more savvy than him. Like when you hold $100 bill up to the light. I don't know what they're looking for, but they know what to look for. Zaktuma. Maishna besela the maflik or maishna betalis the loy maflik. Again, so we're going on the Mishnah, which talks about the din of a coin. We said a coin, it's a machlekes of whether it's a 6th or a 12th or a 24th. To be, I know it's a lower, it's a machlekes about whether it's a lower standard. But by talis, the previous Gemara talked about where you bought an item, and the item was purchased for more or less than its value. And in the case of the talis of an item that was purchased, we didn't say a difference between whether it was in a city or in a village. We said the rule that it's a machlekes between Reb Tarfon and the Tanakama about whether it's till the end of the day or whether it's till you could bring it to show it to someone. But there's no distinction made that how long you have to show it to someone, whether you're in a city or a village. And over here, Lagabi Akum, we are making that distinction. He says the Mishnah, when we talked about a talis, we only discussed the case of Krachim, a regular town where everyone goes with everything's available nearby. So there you can go as long as it takes to show it to someone, and that's what the din we said by a talis. And now we're telling you at the end, by the way, there's a distinction which applies to talis as well as to a coin. That it's going to depend. That if it's in a village, you have a little bit longer till you go to the market on Erev Shabbos. That's Abaya's answer. Rava Amar talis kol inchi kimle begavei. The Rava says, no, there's a different explanation. That a talis, everyone is busy with a talis. That you can always find, even if you're in a rural area, you can ask someone and say how much it's worth. There's stores even in villages. Seller, even the lav koledish kimlin gave, but a seller you have to show to a money changer. The only person who's going to have an answer is a shochani. In the city where there are money changers, then you wait, and then you don't only have the amount of time to show it to a shochani who's nearby. But kfarim the lack of shochani, but in a village where there's no money changers, Aravi Shabbos is the salk and the shuka. Then you have to wait for Erev Shabbos when you actually go to a store, and you don't have a money changer nearby who does this for business. But when you go to the store, like we said, the storekeepers know to check for counterfeit money, and they'll bite it and they'll hold it up to the light, and they'll tell you after a week when you go for Erev Shabbos whether it's good or not. So the Mishnah continued. The Mishnah said, after we had this whole Mishnah that said that if you have a coin, there's a machlokes about what the limit is, but if you have a coin that is deteriorated, that's missing, if that you can bring it back, and if it's more than that amount, the person has to take it back. So we say, and then we said that the shear of how long you can go back. The Gemara says, "V'im hayim akira," and if the person, the purchaser who had handed over this money to someone, and it turns out it's bechdei ayna, afil achar eser achar shnayim asar chodesh, even after 12 months, the Mishnah says he should take it back. So the Gemara says, well, this doesn't make any sense. We just said there's a limit of either till he shows it to a shulchan, until he shows it to a money changer, until the end of the week in the villages. Now it's saying, as long as the purchaser who gave the money in the first place recognizes that this is the same coin that he had originally given, he should take it back. If we're talking about in a city, you only have a limit of whatever, an hour or two. We said only until the end of the week, and now all of a sudden we're saying he should take it back even at the end of, even after a year. Chizda says, no, we're not saying Me'ikar Adin, he has to take it back. We're saying that if he wants to be a chassid, this is the proper thing to do. He should continue to accept it back. As long as, if he knows he passed not good money to a seller, he should take it back. So the Mishnah continues, and it says, if he took the money, the Mishnah says, and all he has is tarumas on him. The guy who had this bad money at the end of 12 months, we say the one who passed the bad money should take it back, and he only has tarumas on the person who he gave it to for giving it back to him. So tomorrow, if we're saying that this person doesn't have to do it, but he's doing it out to midas chasidus, don't be a martyr. Don't take it back and then have tarumas, then have complaints on the person who gave it to you. We said, Maker, then you don't have to take it back. So why are we saying that you then have tarumas, you have a taina on the guy who gave it to you? It's like these passive-aggressive people that they say, okay, fine, I'm going to take it. And then they say, they go away muttering under their breath. Don't be a chassid if you're going to complain about it. I think there's a halacha that if, what do I feel like? There's a halacha if you do a mitzvah and then you complain about it, you don't want to do it, you lose the schar of the mitzvah. So what's the point of doing this mitzvah, of being a chassid, and then complaining? So the Gemara says, no, the tarumas is not from the purchaser who had handed off the coin, the bad coin, and now took it back, al midas chasidus, that he has tarumas. Talking about the one who took the money from him. So tomorrow, Labasa, the Makablim in Tarum is the heavy lay. Where it says if the purchaser is willing to take back the coin, what tarumas does the seller have on him? So tomorrow, Hachikama. The Gemara is saying no, it's saying a different thing. If it's saying the din, it's telling you that it's a midas chasidus. It's really the end of the first thing. It's saying if after a year the seller goes back to the seller goes back to the lekeach and he says you gave me a bad coin, and the lekeach says no, I'm not going to take it from you. We just said that if it's a midas chasidus, you should take back the bad coin. But if the purchaser says no, I'm not taking it, it's past the shear. If it's a krach of the amount of time to show it to a money changer, or in a village, the time till Erev Shabbos, I am not mechayiv to accept it. At that point, the seller who's holding the bad coin has nothing except for tarumas. Meidin, he has nothing to do. He can't go back to him, and he has nothing except for a taina. The Mishnah continues. The Mishnah concluded that if you have a coin that is a shir aina, even though we said that the purchaser, the seller who got that coin can go back to the purchaser and demand that he exchange it. The Gabe Meiser Sheni, if he wants to use this money to be Mechal the Meiser Sheni, again, let's remind ourselves how you Mechal Meiser Sheni. Right? If someone separates Meiser Sheni from his Tfua, he has to bring it to Eden Yerushalayim. And the Torah says he can then be Mechal that Meiser Sheni rather than schlepping the food. He exchanges it for money and then brings the money. When he comes to Yerushalayim, and he can exchange the money for food and eat the food in Yerushalayim. So instead of schlepping food, he can just bring a crisp bill in his wallet. Look to Gemara. So we're saying if he let's say he has a bad dollar, he has a dollar or a coin that really should be worth 100, should have 100 grams of silver, but it only has it only has 95 grams of silver. It only has 75 grams of silver. So it's really a bad coin. Even so, he could use it to be mechal his meiser sheni. Zok the Gemara, because because even though a person has a right to say, "I'm not taking this coin because it's less than the value of the coin," that's it's somebody who's a nefesh ra. Most people are not so finicky that they'll just take it. Listen, it says it's 100 grams. It's 100-gram coin. It's a dollar bill. It's $100 bill. Even if it's a little deteriorated, I'm still going to take it. So therefore, you could use it for meiser sheni. Amar Papa Shmamina Hayman Demuke Mazuzi Mikunefesh Ra. You see from this that someone who says, "I'm not going to take this coin because it's something wrong with it. It's not. It doesn't look right." He's too persnickety. I only want brand new dollars that came straight from the ATM. But this rule is only when you can actually use that money. That means we're saying that in the Mishnah we said even if it's missing oina, it's called a nefesh ra. So now we're talking about Rav Papa saying that somebody takes a coin that it's not oina, but it's something like missing. It has a corner ripped off of it. In the case of, let's say, a dollar bill. But the Gemara says that's only if it's missing a corner that most people will accept it. Normally, people accept it. But if it's not acceptable, that no one will, if you bring it to someone, going to say this. It has a hole in the middle. It goes right through, and therefore I'm not going to take it. Then it's then Einachanami. He's not a nefesh ra. You can't take something that's not legal tender. That's not going to be valid. That people won't accept. So this is a raya to Chizkiya. I'm a Chizkiya. Ba'al parta b'shivya. If someone has money that is again deficient, it's missing some of its value, and you go to a person, you say, I have this $100 coin, but it's really only worth 95, and I need change. You can only ask for $95 of change. You can't ask for $95 bills. You can't say I want $100 bills for something that's worth less. But if he's using it to be mechal his meiser sheni, he wants to be mechal his meiser sheni on that, then he could do it biyafa. Biyafa meaning at its face value. If it's $100 bill, he mechal $100 worth of meiser sheni. My comma, what is he saying? Hachi comma. Aval bi shabala parta b'shivuya. Even though when he wants to change the $100 bill, it's not. Before we were talking about spending it, using it as spending. But if you want to come change it, you can't go to the money changer and say, I want to get $100 for something that's only worth 95. You're just spending it so people are not so medactic. Because they'll also spend it for something worth 100. But when you want to change it, then you have to ask, you only get its value. So the Mishnah says, so we say that so that's what Chizkiah is saying, that you can be mechalit even on its face value. So Gemara, remember this of Chizkiah, the Mezalzim Ma'aser Sheni. Does Chizkiah really hold this? That you could take a coin that's flawed and missing something. So it's first of all using something that's not necessarily a good coin, like we've seen before. In Ma'aser Sheni, you can only be mechal Ma'aser Sheni on money. You can't be mechal on something that's not money. And this is flawed money. So that's one strike against it. And secondly, as a second strike against that, you're using it for less than its value. It's flawed and it has less than, instead of being worth 100, it's worth 95. You're using it to be mechal Ma'aser Sheni worth 100. For Amar Chizkiah, Ma'aser Sheni she'en b'shava pruta. If you have Ma'aser Sheni that is not worth a shava pruta, and as we're going to see on Nun Gimel Amud Beis, you cannot be mechal Ma'aser Sheni of less than a pruta. He says, Chizkiah says that you can be mechal the Ma'aser Sheni. So you have this Ma'aser Sheni that's less than a pruta, and you can't be mechal it. You don't want to schlep the Ma'aser Sheni with you to Yerushalayim. There's a way for him to mechal it. You say, when you mechal Ma'aser Sheni, you always have to add on an extra fifth. That's the rule. So he says, it and its fifth, shemechal al Ma'aser Rishonos. He says, I want to be mechal it on an earlier Ma'aser Sheni that I've taken. Because the person can never be medactic and get his Ma'aser Sheni exactly right, equal with the money that he's mechal on. What that means is, let's see the Rashi on this, just to see how Rashi describes it. When he originally had been mechal Ma'aser Sheni, right? Every person, he grows a crop of fields, and then he has, however much he has, he's not going to have exact change to be mechal on it. So he's always going to be mechal on a little bit more than the value of the Ma'aser Sheni. So Zok Rashi, l'chal b'shavuyim b'tzimtzum. He can't. So you can't get it exactly right. Since he's scared that he's going to give less than the amount of money compared to the amount of Ma'aser Sheni he has, and then it turns out that he's eating his Ma'aser Sheni, the food of Ma'aser Sheni that was not exchanged, because if he gave less money than what it's worth, some of it is still Ma'aser Sheni, and he's eating at Yerushalayim. He's always going to give a little bit extra. Now that he has a little bit, an amount that's less than a shava pruta, let him use that extra from the previous time that he had been mechal Ma'aser Sheni, that he has a little bit money that he had given where he didn't really have Ma'aser Sheni connected, because everyone always puts in some leeway that he should have extra money. But we see from this, we see from here that a person has to be careful, right? We're saying that according to Chizkiah, that you have money left over from the original, from the last time you changed Ma'aser Sheni, because you never get it exactly right. And people are always careful to do extra. So if we see that people are always doing extra, how can we say over here that Chizkiah will say that you can be mechal Ma'aser Sheni with this flawed coin that's not really worth what it's worth? If we're saying that as a matter of course, Chizkiah holds that you always add on extra in your previous ones, how could he say that he allows you to go and be mechal on something that's a deficient coin, that's a flawed coin, it's missing some value, even less than what you're trying to be mechal? Zok the Gemara, ein chanami. My biyafa, when we say that you could be mechal, when you're mechal Ma'aser Sheni, you do it biyafa, you do it, which we thought that to mean that you do it at the face value of the coin, even though it's worth less. So the Gemara, b'tyrus yafa. It's talking about, it doesn't mean biyafa, but it means b'tyrus yafa. That means in the amount of it, or how much it should be worth. That means as if it was yafa, meaning you look at how much the coin is worth in its flawed state. The trezili Chizkiah agrees that you cannot do two things that are negatives when you're Mechal Meiser Sheni. You can't both use a flawed coin and use it for less than its actual value. You have to calculate what its actual value is. And we said, like we proved from this case that we just showed, that he said you can be Mechal less than a Shava Pruta because we see that because you can do it against the previous time when you were done. As a matter of course, people always add in a little buffer and are Mechal the Meiser Sheni with extra. Now we're going to get into like a blot, or at least pretty much a blot about this concept that we just saw the Rashi on. That Chizkiah says that someone who has a Meiser Sheni of less than a pruta, he can be Mechal using the leftover from the previous time when he was Mechal Meiser Sheni, and there was some Eidif. He says there's always some built-in extra because people want to be careful. They don't want to be Mechal on less than they don't want to be Mechal Meiser Sheni with less than its value. So they add in a little extra because the coin is never going to be exactly the same amount. Gufa Amar Chizkiah. Meiser Sheni she'en b'shava pruta. You have Meiser Sheni of less than a Shava Pruta, which you cannot be Bechal on its own. Eimer, he says, Hu b'chaim she'mechol ha'moiser rishonis. This Meiser Sheni, as well as the extra chaimish that I have to add on to it when I'm Mechal it, should be Mechol ha'moiser rishonis. It should be Mechol on that extra added on amount of money from the previous time that I was Mechal Meiser Sheni, because there's always extra. Because a person can never get exactly right, so he adds in a buffer. Hatruma, bikurim. This Mishnah, this Brisa of this Mishnah is going to contrast the din of Truma and Bikurim versus Meiser Sheni. So first we say Truma, the din of Truma. Truma Bikurim, Chayav and Misa. A person is chayav for them, Misa b'dei Shamayim. If someone eats, who's not a kayin eats Truma, or Bikurim, which is limited to Kehanim, Yichai Misa b'dei Shamayim. Masha'ekin, someone who eats Meiser Sheni out of Yishalayim, there's no chayav b'dei Shamayim. Misa b'dei Shamayim is chayav malchus. B'chaimish, and in addition, if someone who's a zar eats Truma or Bikurim, he has to the zar has to pay a chaimish. Masha'ekin, someone who eats Meiser Sheni outside of Yishalayim, there's no din chaimish. Don't get confused. There is a din of being mechal Meiser Sheni that you have to add on the chaimish. We're talking about the penalty for someone eating it outside Yishalayim. There's no penalty of a chaimish, which you have by Truma and Bikurim. Basurim lazar, and the ikar din, right? That a Truma and Bikurim has to be eaten by a zar. Meiser Sheni could, of course, be eaten by anyone as long as they're eating it in Yushalayim. Behein nichsei kayin. Another difference between Truma and Bikurim is that once it's given to a kayin, it becomes the property of the kayin, and the kayin can use it to be makadosh and isha. Masha'enke Meiser Sheni, we've had a couple of times. We say this is Mandama holds. Meiser Sheni is mishulchan gavaya kachel. It doesn't, even though he can eat in Yushalayim, it's looked upon as if he's eating something that belongs to the Rebbeinu Shalom. So, for example, he wouldn't be able to be mekadosh and isha with it, even though he's allowed to eat it. It's only that he's participating. Really, is the Rebbeinu Shalom, that the Rebbeinu Shalom allows him to eat it. Another nafkamina is that Truma and Meiser, if it's mixed in with 101, it's considered bottle. If you have right, if you have Truma Meiser, which can only be eaten by a kain, it's mixed in with regular food that's 101 times as much, it becomes bottle. That's what oil means. It becomes bottle in it. And now, what the Masha'enkim and Meiser Sheni is not clear. The Gemara is going to have two tzadim. Either it means Meiser Sheni could be bottle even b'roiv. It doesn't need 100. It doesn't have to be bottle b'meya. It could be bottle even b'roiv. And the other tzad is that, which we'll see, is that Meiser Sheni can't be bottle at all, even in any amount. Utu'unin rechitas yadayim. And in addition, you have to, you're not allowed to eat truma without washing your hands, which we had all the way back. If you remember, what was it? The skan koyin, Hananya Skan HaKayanim, all the way back, like maybe in Brachas or Psachim or somewhere, back in Mayid, we had one of the takanas the Chachamim made is you have to wash your hands before Truma. But there's no such takana, you have to be tar, but this hand washing, the chiyuv of hand washing for Truma, which is actually where our din of washing hands for bread comes from. It's an outgrowth of the takana of washing your hands for Truma. That only applies to Truma and Bikurim. It doesn't apply to Ma'aser Sheni. There's no din to wash your hands before eating Ma'aser Sheni. The Harav Shemesh. In addition, there's a chiluk between Ma'aser Sheni as opposed to Truma. As we've seen a number of times, Truma, you have to, if you become Tameh, and then you matar yourself by going to the mikvah, you still have to wait for that night, for the night before you can eat Truma. Masha Enkein, Ma'aser Sheni, as soon as you dunk in the mikvah, you're immediately allowed to eat Ma'aser Sheni. And we said, all these things that we just mentioned are all relevant. It's all true about Trumas and Bikurim, but it's not true by Ma'aser. So what does it mean that it's not true by Ma'aser? Lav Mechlal. Now we're getting back to the one that I said, the tricky one, which is that we said the difference between Trumas and Bikurim as opposed to Ma'aser is that Truma and Bikurim can become Mechulal in 101, while on the other hand, Ma'aser is not. What does it mean that Ma'aser is not Mechulal in 100? La Mechlal, the bottle Baruba, doesn't it mean to say that Ma'aser doesn't need 100? Right? Generally, we've been saying that things are, by Ma'aser, are more kal. So doesn't it mean that Ma'aser can even be bottle Baroiv? You don't need 100 in order to be bottle. Then he said the Chizkiah, if we hold like Chizkiah, that Chizkiah says that if you have, now we're understanding, why would it be bottle Baroiv? It's because, it must be, because it's a davar she'en la matirin. You can never be mavatal anything if there's a way to be matir. That's the rule, right? If you have a way to be matir, we don't give you a way out to be mavatal, to be batal baroiv, unless it's something that you don't have another option of how to use it. So the Gemara is understanding that we're talking over here about something that's less than a pruta, and there's no option to be mavatal it, and therefore it becomes batal baroiv. Then we say the Chizkiah, if we say like Chizkiah, the Chizkiah says, even if it's less than a pruta, you can be mavatal it on the previous time that you had been mavatal Ma'aser Sheni, where we said there's always a built-in cushion that you can use now to add on and make it that you're now being mavatal a full pruta. There is a way to be matter this less than a pruta. You can't be mavatal it even 1,000. It's not going to be. Not only won't it be bottle in a roiv, it won't be bottle in anything. And as contrasted with truma, obviously truma is something that it's elam matir, and once it's truma, it can't become ice truma. There's no being mechalal truma at all. So Gemara, the bottle beruba. So Gemara says no. How do you know that that's what we're trying to say? That you're saying it's a kasha and chizkiah. The chizkiah says that you can be mevatel less than a pruta using the previous bittul, the previous chil of Ma'aser Sheni. Maybe what it's saying over here, when we say that when we'll be contrasting Trumas and Ma'aser, that Truma and Bikurim can be bottled in 100 and Ma'aser can't, it means to say that Ma'aser can't be bottled at all, like Chizkiah says, because it's a davar sheyesh material. And it's not that you can't be that you could be bottled at the roiv, but saying you can't be mavatal at all in the other direction. It's more chamer than Trumas and Bikurim. Zakt Gemara, loy matzas amet hachi. It's not possible to say this. The legabi truma chumri de truma ktani, kula truma loy ktani. We were saying chumras of truma as opposed to Ma'aser Sheni, and all of a sudden now legabi bittul we're going to say that truma is less chamer. That truma could be bottled 100, and Ma'aser can't be bottled at all. So the Gemara says, but that's not true. One of the differences we said is that a truma and bikurim, become the property of the Kain, and therefore he can be Kaddish and Isha because it becomes fully his. So, as opposed to Meiser Sheni, which is Mishulchan Gavaya, and therefore he can't be Mekadosh Shenish with it. So that's a chumrah of Meiser Sheni as opposed to Kain. So don't tell me that everything here is a kula of Meiser Sheni as opposed to Truma. But Tani hey nifsei Kain. So Gemara says, even so, leaving aside the fact that you're right, this is not a good taina that we're only saying kulos of Meiser Sheni as opposed to Truma. But you still can't say that when we're talking about Meiser Sheni, when we say that Truma is batal in 100, don't tell me that we're saying as opposed to Meiser Sheni, which is not batal at all, because we have a brisa that explains the Mishnah and says clearly that it's saying it's even batal b'roiv. The Tanya behedya, Meiser Sheni batal b'ruba. Meiser Sheni can be batal b'roiv. Ube'ezer Meiser Sheni amru. Which kind of Meiser Sheni are we talking about? So the Gemara says that at least according to the first pshat, and Ahmed Beis will see a second pshat. But right now this pshat was saying, but Meiser Sheni she'em b'shava pruta. It's talking about either Meiser Sheni that doesn't have a shava pruta. So that's a Meiser Sheni that can be batal b'roiv, which is because since it's davar she'en la matirin, there's no way to be mechalet, so therefore it can be batal. Another example of Meiser Sheni that can't be batal is Meiser Sheni that was brought into Yerushalayim and then taken out. You can no longer be mevatel, which we'll explain later on. But again, so now we're back to our original question. I'm sorry. So back to our original question. According to Chizkiah that says you can be mechal even less than a shava pruta, why are we saying this? Bryce is saying clearly that moyes that are less than a shava pruta, that's when you can be mevatel at baroiv because there's no matirin. But according to Rav Chizkiah, there should be matirin on the original time that you had separated. Meiser Sheni, mechal Meiser Sheni. So Gemara, I'll give you a very simple reason why you can't use. Why it's not a davar sheyesh lo material. It's talking about the loy parak. It's talking about where he had never separated Meiser Sheni. He had never separated Meiser Sheni. He had never milchal Meiser Sheni. So he doesn't have an original coin that has some extra cushion in it. So to fact Gemara, v'nesi Meiser the Islay v'nestrafinu. So let him go ahead and do it now. Let him go and take let him take some more food that he has and separate it, and now he'll add in a little bit more. He has, let's say, a chatzi pruta of other meiser sheni that he had to separate, and they do it now and make it together with this chatzi pruta and put them together. So why is the Mishnah saying? So according to Chizkiah, even according to it, should still be a way for him to be mechalet, and therefore it should still remain a davar sheyesh matir. And according to Chizkiah, that says you can combine this chatzi pruta with the earlier chatzi pruta. Let him also combine this chatzi pruta with the current chatzi pruta that he's bringing. He's saying that he said that he didn't have a previous one, so let him make a new one. So Gemara, no, the Raisa the Rabbanon Lo Mitzdarfi. That won't work because even though we're saying that you can't be mitzdarif this pruta that's mixed in with a roiv of other things, we said it doesn't become. We're saying it's not going to become bottle because this chatzi pruta that's mixed in is not going to become bottle because it's a davar sheyesh la matirin, because you could be mevatel with some other meiser sheni. That which we say davar sheyesh la matirin is not bottle, is only the rabbanon dikadin. So midaraisa, this less than a pruta of meiser sheni is really already bottle b'roiv. but this new meiser sheni that you want to bring at mimavatal, its only issue is that it wasn't bottled yet, so it's mechoyev in meiser b'deraisa. Stuck to Gemara, so and you can't be mechalel meiser derabanan with meiser sheni derabanan, something that's only mechoyev meiser sheni derabanan with something that's mechol meiser sheni deraisa. That obviously, for obvious reasons, right? Because you're taking something that is not really mechoyev and meiser, and you're using it to mechal something that is. So Gemara of a nesi demai. So instead of taking regular meiser sheni, let him go buy from a amaretz, which we say midarabanan he has to separate meiser, he has to mechal it, and he has to bring it in meiser, and use it with this meiser sheni of less than a pruta that was already mixed in a roiv. And if you have two things that are both derabanan, so no, we don't allow that. The Chum don't allow it because we're scared if we let him to do with the mai. Part of the takanas chachamim that the mai is treated that has to have, but then you have to separate our meisers, that we don't let you do it together with something else, because then you'll come to do it not just with the mai, but with also something that's deraisidik. And like we said, you can't be mechal meiser deraisa under Rabban. But mara of an AC shtei prutas v'chalai meiser v'hutu mechza. Okay, so let him take two prutas and use and go ahead and do what he had originally said he was going to do, meaning not take something that there's going to be extra money left from this, and not that he's been putting together this half a pruta of ma'isa together with another half a pruta of ma'isa sheni, b'mechal together, but rather take a little bit less than two prutas worth of ma'aser and be mechaled on two prutas. So you have a little bit extra value in this money, and then v'nechala hay alayich yisera. And according to Chizkiah, right, we said you can. So you're creating the exact situation that you had before, rather than taking actual ma'aser sheni and adding it to this half a pruta that's mixed in. You're taking that value that Chizkiah said that you could take from a previous time and making it now. So tomorrow, misavas pruta mechza tafsa shtei prutas. But it says no, that wouldn't work according to Chizkiah, because when you take 1.5 prutas, what will happen is one pruta will be fully machul, and the other pruta will say it's less than a pruta and it's not machul at all. Like v'chatzi pruta loy tafsa. What's going to happen is, if you do one pruta, loy pruta v'tafsa pruta v'chatzi pruta loy tafsa. When he's going to do one of the prutas will be typhus and the other one won't. The other half, that's not enough at all. So now we're back to having a deraisa, and this other half of pruta is again a ma'aser sheni deraisa because it's not mixed in. That's what I'm learning starfi. So Gemara v'nesi is, so let them take a large amount, so you don't have to separate and say the pruta is machal and the half pruta is not. So Gemara, then we'll also lasi prutas. Again, we're going to have a gzera because they'll maybe end up coming to be mechalal prutas, which, like we said, it's not going to work because then you'll have a half a pruta and there won't be mechalal at all. Okay, we'll stop over here because I got to go run to davening. Is the Ilam interested in